Good Shabbos, everyone. One Yom Kippur, after morning services, the rabbi noticed a little boy who was staring up at the large plaque that hung in the foyer of the synagogue. It was covered with names, and small American flags were mounted on either side of it. The 7-year-old had been staring at the plaque for some time, so the rabbi walked up to him and asked him how he was. The rabbi, "I'm fine," but the young boy still continued to focus on the plaque. Then asking the rabbi, "What is this?" "Well, son, it's a memorial to all the young men and women who died in the service." Soberly, they stood together, staring at the large plaque. And then the little boy's voice was barely audible when he asked the rabbi, "Which one, the Rosh Hashanah or the Yom Kippur service?" Fortunately, it's not likely that any of us will pass away during services. But something else, almost as bad, happened at a recent B'nai Mitzvah service. Last month, a true story, a group of thugs surrounded a group of Jewish worshipers while they were reading the Torah. They were in the middle of a B'nai Mitzvah service, and they stood around them, cursing them, humiliating them, spitting at them, and making remarks demeaning their Jewish identity. They surrounded the families and danced around them mockingly and violently. To prevent them from praying, they blew loud whistles to shock and frighten the Jewish worshipers. They proceeded to rip apart their prayer books. One man even took a page out of the prayer book, put it in his mouth, chewed it up, and spit it out. I think we would all describe this as anti-Semitism. What if I told you what I was describing happened in Jerusalem at the Western Wall, when ultra-Orthodox youth attacked a conservative and reform B'nai Mitzvah in the beginning of July? Families who were holding a B'nai Mitzvah celebration for their children at the egalitarian section of the Western Wall. You can find this incident online. The footage left me in shock. Ronald Larder, president of the World Jewish Congress, put it best. He wrote, "I'm disgusted by the hatred, intolerance, and bigotry displayed by these ultra-Orthodox men, women, and teens who desecrated a B'nai Mitzvah and violated their right to practice our faith freely in what's supposed to be the beating heart of the Jewish people." Every Jewish family whose son or daughter who has celebrated a bar or bat mitzvah is familiar with the experience in the months preceding it. The excitement, the tension, the years of study. Then there's the courage to chant Hebrew words with trope together in front of others. And of course, concern that their voice itself, which is changing at that age, could suddenly decide to do whatever it wants just at that moment. We can imagine the feelings of the children whose ceremony was interrupted and desecrated in this way. It's difficult to assess how that trauma will be etched in their minds for the rest of their lives, or how it will affect their attitude towards Israel, the country that their American parents had insisted was the place where they would celebrate this important milestone. Yes, if such an incident had taken place anywhere else in the world, it would have been described as anti-Semitic. But since it happened in Jerusalem, in Israel, and it was Jews who were doing the attacking on other Jews, what should we call it? Tonight begins the holiday of Tisha B'Av. It's an important day in the Jewish calendar. Beginning tonight and tomorrow, we mourn the destructions of both temples, the first and second temple in Jerusalem, and other tragedies that have befallen the Jewish people over the centuries. Why was the second temple destroyed? The rabbis ask. During the time of the Second Temple, there were 4 major sects of Jews, denominations, if you will, groups of Jews. There were the Pharisees, and they were the scribes who would later become the rabbis. There were the Sadducees. They worked at the temple. They had a good partnership with the Romans. They kind of wanted to leave the things the way they were. Don't upset what is working for us. There were the Essenes. They were kind of like the Jewish hippies of the time. They lived out by the Dead Sea. They really didn't know what was going on. And And then there were the Zealots. The Zealots were going to fight the Romans no matter what, even if it meant attacking other Jews to force them to fight against the Romans. Why was the Second Temple destroyed, the rabbis asked? Because the Jews could not work together. They fought amongst each other, killing each other in their fight against the Romans. Then hence it was much easier for the Romans to siege Jerusalem, destroy it, along with the Second Temple. And this division is called by our rabbis sinat chinam, unlimited hatred of Jews by other Jews. Yes, some divisions, of course, are normal and necessary, especially in the realm of religion. No religion has all their people behave and practice in the same way, especially a religion as ancient as ours, one that goes back thousands of years. It would be awkward if every Jew throughout the world prayed and practiced the exact same way. It's never been the case. There have always been divisions. But it's not the divisions that cause the issues. It's when religions get political, then extreme and intolerant division is destructive. The sin that caused the destruction of Jerusalem was that political and religious extremism led to sinat chinam, unrestricted and unlimited hate. Is that where we are today, 2,000 years later, with Jews attacking other Jews? Like most places today, our community is also impacted by polarization. Centrist positions are weakening across the world. It's a challenge we all face, no matter what religion, no matter where we live. And the ideological extremes are gaining strength. It's a threat in the Jewish people to the cohesiveness of the next generation of Am Yisrael, the people of Israel. On the one hand, we have plenty of challenges with Jews on the extreme left, with those who are working to destroy the Jewish state, anti-Zionists who support the actual boycott of the state. And I've spoken about these Jews before, and I'll continue to do so in the future. But this morning, I'm concerned about our ties with our ultra-Orthodox brothers and sisters on the extreme right, like those Jews who attacked that B'nai Mitzvah service in Jerusalem. Here's something interesting. According to the 2020 Pew Research Center survey of the American Jewish population, just 1% of Jews 65 and older are considered Haredim, or ultra-Orthodox. Compare that with 11% of United States Jewish adults under the age of 30 who are ultra-Orthodox. With their high birth rates, in just 15 years' time, the ultra-Orthodox will account for 25%, a quarter of the world's Jewish population. Think about that for just a moment. To put this in perspective, the Haredi population doubles in number every 20 years. They have a lot more children. And while the general Jewish population takes 300 years to multiply. So in 2037, just 15 years from now, 25% of the world's Jewish population will be Haredi. In 2057, just 35 years from now, it will be close to half. 50% of the Jewish population will be ultra-Orthodox if recent trends continue. What values will be promoted by our community if soon enough such a large percentage of our people don't share many of the values you and I hold dear? Will the common thread, uniting all Jews, be compromised to such an extent that the Jewish people as a concept, God forbid, may be no more? History teaches us again and again that we're our strongest when we are united, when at least we get along with each other, when we're not fighting with each other, and we're most vulnerable when we are not. Our enemies want to see the continued unraveling of our people, and God knows we have enough enemies out there. We don't need more within our own people. Is there anything we can do? This morning, I want to briefly outline 2 steps that maybe we can take, easy steps. Easy steps for all of us to take, but with important ramifications. Number 1, can we do more to welcome the ultra-Orthodox in our community? In the past, the Haredi community's need to segregate themselves wasn't a problem. They were so small. But in the future, because of their growth, such segregation could have strategic consequences. And we hope that the ultra-Orthodox choose to no longer live separately and decide to join in communal responsibilities with the rest of the Jewish world as full participants. We need them to be active part of the Jewish community. We're too small already. But if that happens, a different problem could arise because their needs and desires from a religious perspective are different than ours. Are we willing to admit them? As Eli Spitzer notes in the article he wrote on MosaicMagazine.com, he writes, any major Jewish organization that wants to continue to act for on behalf of the Jewish people must start now taking into account the growing prominence of Haredim, or risk increasing irrelevance. He points out that the ADL, other major Jewish organizations like AIPAC, have virtually zero Haredi participation or representation. And it also means providing for their strict observance levels. Are we willing and ready at large conferences to have liberal-minded services and Orthodox services with mechitzas? Are we willing to provide for fully kosher meals at all Jewish events? I'm proud at Beth Yeshurun that we're under the auspices of the Houston Kashrut Association, that almost any Jew in this community can eat here, no matter how strict their kashrut level is. That's important. When our Haredi or ultra-Orthodox brothers and sisters are willing to come here, we have to make them feel welcome. Are we willing to do so? But number two, can we also insist that our ultra-Orthodox Jews accept us, accept you and me? Every once in a while, I have a weekend off where I'm not out of town, I'm not here at Beth Yeshurun, and every couple of years I like to go spend a Shabbat in the Fondren Southwest area, just a few miles from here. And as some of you know, that's a very Orthodox area here in Houston. On Shabbat, everyone is walking. There are many Orthodox shuls. And every once in a while, I like to go there, have some Shabbat meals, spend the night with friends that I have over there. And I usually end up at the largest synagogue over there called Young Israel. And I walk in, many people are often surprised to see me. But I think it's important to do. And perhaps some of us should do the same every once in a while. I'm not saying I want to lose any of you. But what if every once in a while we went over there and they too saw firsthand that we are serious Jews, that we do care about our Judaism, that we take it seriously, that we are involved, that we too care deeply, that we too know a lot about our Jewish tradition, that it also means a lot to us. Would it make a difference? I don't know. But perhaps it will help. They may never find our expression of Jewish practice authentic to them, and we may never agree with all of their approaches either. But I believe it's important to try to build bridges, connections, more links to our communities to keep us together, rather than fall further apart. Tonight on Tisha B'Av, we'll read the book of Lamentations. We'll read the horrific accounts of the destruction of Jerusalem during the period of the First Temple. We'll follow the speaker of the book on his journey from journalistic remove to empathy. What begins for him and for us as a tragedy that happened to someone else sometime else becomes a tragedy which we live through together, lifting ourselves back out of it. And as teacher Beck Stern Rosenblatt points out, the journey happens because the speaker is not alone. He encounters the object of his description, Lady Jerusalem. He describes the city so vividly that she pops off the page and speaks for herself, discovering her own voice. And with that voice, she moves the speaker, bringing him and through him us to understand and identify with her point of view. By the end, the speaker of Echa, Lamentations, that we read tonight, Lady Jerusalem, and we, the readers, have joined together, adding strength to each other as we reinforce each other's pleas. Our Haftarah this morning, that was read by our Bat Mitzvah in such a beautiful way, is the final Haftarah of the 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av, from the prophet Isaiah. In the portion that she read opened with prophecies of doom and calls for change. Entering into dialogue with Isaiah, we hope to make him reconsider, to soften his judgment. We call upon Isaiah to celebrate what we have left rather than mourn what we have lost. But Isaiah in the Haftarah ignores our plea and seizes upon the imagery we use. He responds claiming they were actually already as bad and lost as Sodom and Gomorrah. We don't change his mind. we only harshen the punishment. In Lamentations, we move the speaker to empathy. In Isaiah, we move the speaker to wrath. It's always a courageous choice to enter into dialogue. Let's hope we do so wisely. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.